All right, good morning. My contemplation this morning is on cocoa butter. Nigerian cocoa butter exports is a fraction of the global demand. If you have been following this page and you've been seeing what I've been talking about, you realize there is a trend. In Yoruba, there is a saying that said, "Àrùn tí ń ṣogójì ní ṣọ̀ọ́dúnrún." What is happening to one sector? I mean, literal interpretation now. What is happening to one sector? What's happening to the other? What's happening to 20? What's happening to 300? You notice that in Nigerian economy, we are a major producer of a lot of agro commodity, but we are not doing a lot of export of those products. In fact, we're not doing a lot also in value addition. And that's my focus this morning. And my focus this morning is on cocoa butter. Now, if you follow me before, you have spoken about the fact that the major producer and exporter of cocoa butter in the world is in Africa, particularly West Africa. As a matter of fact, Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana, Nigeria, Cameroon are major exporter of cocoa butter. About 75% of cocoa production in the world is from West Africa. However, the major exporter of cocoa butter are not African. Cocoa butter market demand is about 504 billion. 504 billion. Now, the top exporter of cocoa butter, Africa, 65% of that is by 5 countries. 65% of cocoa butter export. Remember, the total value is $5.4 billion. 65% of the $5.4 billion, 65% of that is from 5 countries. And none of those countries is Africa. None. Netherlands, 25% export of cocoa butter. Indonesia, 12.5% export of cocoa butter. Malaysia, 11.5% export of cocoa butter. Germany, 8.5% export of cocoa butter. France, 7.5% of export of cocoa butter. That's about 65%. What is interesting about this, actually, and you realize, is the fact that in spite of the fact that major producers are in West Africa is very low in the volume of export of cocoa butter. So I now have to begin to ask questions. So for example, Nigeria export of cocoa butter is about 0.9%. 0.9%. Less than 1%. 0.9%. That's about $50 million. About $50 million. Compared to the market demand of $5.4 billion. So, and I mean, like, if you join me here every day, you know that the objective is not just to talk about the issues, it's also look at what are the challenges. So, number one, what is the challenge? Why is it that Africa, particularly Nigeria, is unable to do a lot of export of cocoa butter produced from cocoa beans? Inadequate infrastructure has been stated as one of the major challenges, making them not very competitive. Poor access to finance. In fact, because we do a lot of export of cocoa beans, the price of cocoa beans is high. It's now difficult for a small business to do cocoa butter. Why? Because of the price of cocoa beans. Because of the price of cocoa beans. Meaning there's need for support to be able to increase the volume of production like Côte d'Ivoire has done, Ghana has done. I'm not sure Nigeria has produced up to 300,000 tons. Côte d'Ivoire is doing over 1 million, and I think Ghana is doing also close to that. But Nigeria is not doing up to that. But the bigger landmass are these 2 countries. So meaning we can actually produce more than what we are producing right now. Low quality production due to outdated farming practice and the fact that some of there are new farms coming on, cocoa farm, but a number of the farms where we are getting the current export are the one that Awolowo planted decades, probably about 4 decades ago. Limited access to market because of the quality of our butter. Insufficient government support and policies. And I will talk about what the Netherlands has done right, because it's important we copy from what people have done right. Competition from cocoa producing nation. But government support, I think, is a major area we need to take a serious look at. Government support. Now, let's check what Netherlands has done. What has Netherlands done? What is it that they've been able to do to be able to increase the production, particularly Netherlands and other countries around that were also a major exporter of this product? Number one, they invest a lot in research and development to be able to have a very high quality cocoa butter for export. How do you explain the fact that the country who are the major exporter of it's not even finished product, of the intermediate product, are not a producer of the raw materials? They didn't even come close. Even Ecuador, that is doing a little bit more in production, they are not even on the list. So research and development, I think, is a major one for this country. About research and development, advanced processing facility. One thing I've talked about regarding processing in Africa, which I saw, I think it was in Leicester in UK. You know, I have cocoa beans and I want to export cocoa butter. I don't need to be the owner of, I don't need to set up a factory of cocoa butter. I bring in my cocoa beans. They already tell me, based on the number of tons I produce, this is the yield of butter. And then the powder that results from that and all that, what's the name? Derivative are also given to me. So I come back in a week or two, I get my butter. Meaning, I don't have to worry about setting up. And this is what we can do actually to grow manufacturing in Nigeria. If certain way you have a big manufacturing plant that only process for people, different people, they bring it, they produce for them in their brand, and they'll put their own NAFDAC on it. That way, we can, and they can be replicated not just for cocoa butter, it can be done for shea butter, it can be done for cassava product, it can be done for different kind of product. And what this will do is, it will make, so people can concentrate more on production of raw materials, concentrate more on farming. And this will make Nigeria to export more butter, actually, because I'm sure a number of people that are probably exporting cocoa beans are doing cocoa beans because they are unable to export cocoa butter, because they don't have the factory to produce cocoa butter. They don't have the funding to set up the factory to produce cocoa butter. So they are exporting cocoa beans. But if you can set up factories or a public-private partnership, meaning government is going to provide funding and be a co-owner, but it's going to be run by private sector who is also bringing counterpart funding. And the idea is this, and like I said, this is not just, this is also for shea butter. So all those women in Niger State, in Kwara State, can easily take this butter, I mean, they are not, to this place, and they can export the butter themselves. Even the farmer, cocoa farmer, can export the cocoa themselves, I mean, cocoa butter themselves. And there's incentive to go and produce more cocoa, because you know where to take it to now, convert to butter. And of course, you know, if cocoa beans price is about $10,000, some point more than $10,000, imagine what the price of cocoa butter per ton will be. Just imagine that. Imagine that. Cashew nut, for example, raw cashew nut at some point was about $1,000, $1,005 per metric ton. Raw cashew nut. But the kernel sometimes can go as high as $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 per metric tons. That's how much mileage you can get when you are adding value. And I'm saying we don't need to set up, individual doesn't need to set up this factory. Government can help private sector to set it up and charge a fee per ton to process for people in their brand. I won't have to worry about NAFDAC. I won't have to worry about power. I won't have to worry about so many things that will have hindered me. This is what Niger State can do for their people. This is what Ondo State can do for their people for cocoa. Niger State can do this for shea butter. Even in the East for palm oil, we can do this. So what this, in my opinion, will do for us is to ensure that at the end of the day, we can export value-added agro product without much hassle, without much issue, and with less investment in the asset required to set up the factory. This is my contemplation this morning. Thank you very much for listening. See you in the next video, and bye-bye.